So, you do a lot of counseling, and I know that you've worked with so many couples. And one of the things that I think is most striking when we're talking to people going through pornography addiction in their marriages is that the view of how damaging pornography is differs between the spouses. So sometimes the man cannot necessarily correlate that his pornography use is impacting the wife as substantially as it is, and the wife sees it as detrimental to the marriage. Do you see that differing view of pornography and how it impacts the marriage from a man versus a woman?
You're asking a really pointed question, Karen, so let me parse it a little bit for you. First, the difference isn't always because the difference about the view of pornography. First, as far as him not being able to understand her trauma, that is legit. And we have two products. One's called Helping Her Heal, in which I really help the man understand what he has done to his wife. And literally, I've had guys come back in my office and go, oh my gosh, I cannot believe what I've done. The second product is the Partner Betrayal Trauma video or book, where the statistics alone, page after page after page after page after page of before trauma, she was this, after trauma, like before trauma, 26% were depressed. After, 88% were depressed, clinically depressed. That's the result of pornography. Wow. Okay. And that's the result that he had on his wife. Okay. The reason there's a disparity is because of his immaturity. Addictions of any type, alcohol, drugs, sex, food, work, anything, rob you of three areas of maturity: spiritual maturity, moral maturity, which is how you make decisions, and emotional maturity. So he's responding like if you found pot in your 13-year-old bedroom. And he's going to say, why are you in my bedroom? Instead of, let's talk about the pot, right? And so in the same way, early in recovery, the man is still immature. And you got to understand that pornography has raised him probably from 8 to 12 years old till now. And it's been his boo-boo mommy, his Binky. Okay. And so he doesn't want to necessarily, well, Binky can't be bad, right? No, Binky's really bad. And it's destructive, not only to her, but to him neurologically, psychologically, physiologically, and in the area of intimacy. It can rob him of so much, because these are the areas I see guys develop. Here's, Rob, you'll like this, you're a guy, and no offense, Karen, but
none taken.
Here's one of the things I see with guys, okay? If they are entrepreneurs, business owners, or self-employed, and a lot of my clients are those, they will literally double or more than double their income in a 12-month period if they stop doing pornography. In 12 months, they double or more than double their income. That is a numerical way of saying there's a lot of change that happens. The self-esteem improves. They can trust their judgment again, and they can be creative again. Because right now, all their creativity is going how to get the secret, manage the secret, and do all that. Well, that's one way of looking at it. Imagine that same way spiritually doubling, emotionally doubling, right? And that's what happens when we get off that drug. We become what we're supposed to be, instead of what the drug has made us to be, which is full of secrets and shame and anxiety. And if you really knew me, you wouldn't love me. And one of the great things is, when a woman does find out, at least it ends the secret for him. It's awful for her, but it ends the secret for him. I used to call that, my first article I wrote in my whole career was called Clouds and Thunder. When he tells her everything, he's on a pink cloud, he feels great. And she's in the storm, right? Yeah. Because she didn't know. But that's why the discrepancy is there. So it's a little bit more complicated than their view of pornography. For her, it wasn't her best friend growing up. It wasn't where she went to after she was rejected by a boyfriend or girlfriend. It wasn't the place where she went when dad was yelling and screaming at mom. It wasn't a place to help her develop. It was for him a place where he leaned on to get through life. So it was his friend, even though it was hurting him. You see the emotional difference?
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. In your counseling with men too, as you're working on addressing the pornography addiction, you talk about all these side effects of, increased work performance and success in other areas, because now you're focused on positive behaviors in those spaces instead of hiding the secret. Do you also incorporate health and wellness and taking care of one's body, mind, and soul into your practice? Because I think that's an important piece to it, is it not?
Absolutely, because the neurological imbalance that the addiction causes, it's really helpful to have either creative outlets or physical outlets. But Karen, as a woman, you want to know about the impact. one of the impacts on a woman is the neurological impact. And that's not something that counseling can heal. We have in my office at Heart to Heart, we have a neuromodulation treatment, which you listen to these sounds, and it's a long story to explain the technology. About $50 million went into the technology. But literally by Wednesday, I can see the women's eyes change. Okay, because when you get hit by a truck, I mean, literally get hit by an 18-wheeler, okay, you're different. And they're frozen, or they're in fight, or they're in flight. None of those options are helpful for a brain. No. And the brain will stay there like stay there until it gets the freedom to be able to heal itself. And that is another part of the demonstratable progress we see, because a woman goes in, she gets her scores, how her brain is on Monday, and they're usually pretty bad. And by Friday, they're like totally in a different place. Her brain is more centered and able to be neuroplastic again, which it wasn't capable of doing on Monday because of what he did to her in the trauma. And that's another way that we can measure that trauma is real for these ladies.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. That weight, that burden lifted is I mean, it's amazing. It's huge. But Dr. Doug, we talk with so many couples here at Covenant Eyes, men, women, couples together, and there is always a reluctance to dive into counseling. And I don't know if that's coming from the church or if that's just a normal reaction from people, but tell us a little bit why counseling and support groups are so important in this process of healing.
Well, let me tell you a funny story, Rob, and then I'll answer your question why support groups are important. So when I was in Bible school, I got radically saved, right? So when I went to Bible school, in the first quarter, you had to take psychology course. Well, I went up to the dean of students who became president later, and I said, listen, I'm not taking that psychology course. That's of the devil. Okay. So God's sense of humor is he makes me a psychologist. Okay. But we integrate the biblical stuff. We're not on the psychology side. We're integrating biblical truths. Okay. Now, why is it important to have support? Because if you could beat it by yourself, you would have. You can't. Okay. We use the 12 steps. The we part of that is having community. We heal in community. And there's something powerful about having other people who have the same addiction as you, no matter what the addiction, to be able to speak into your life and to call you on the stuff that you need to be called on in a loving way, and to call you up and move you forward and to inspire you. Because we have groups in our office, we have many groups, but we also have about 50, 60 phone groups. So anyone who's listening to us can get in a phone group for either the partner betrayal trauma, intimacy anorexia, which is another monster, and then our sexual addiction. And so we got lots of groups going, about 50, 60 a week. And in there, it is so sacred, that's all I can say, is they open up their hearts and they say, this is what's going on with me. This is how I struggled. This was my victory this week. And they encourage one another. They pray with one another. They strengthen one another. They rebuke one another. And that's the kind of community we need to heal and get stronger. Now, I've been doing this for 40 years, and I've seen thousands of men grow up in those groups and become really strong men in their churches and their community and their families. And the women heal and they become incredible. The women say, I'm the way I used to be. Okay, I used to be happy. I used to have energy. I used to be excited about living, and I lost that. And in the group, they begin to heal, and over time, they go, "I feel like me again." That's the most common response, and I go, "Yay!" Okay, after the work, you get to feel like you again, and then you can take it from there. So the group is miraculous. There's no short way of doing it. Some healings are process; they're not instantaneous. And just confessing it to your wife, you're not healed. Okay? You just started. And the same with the wife. You need to start the process of healing, because the couples that have the best success are the ones where he does his support group, she does her support group, and they do the marriage recovery exercises together. And that combination over 40 years has been the synergisticness that makes couples heal quicker and get back to their lives. Okay? And that is, Rob, insightful, because groups is how it happens. You know, anywhere I want to improve in life, I get people that are better than me around me. And that's no truer than in this particular area.
Such good advice. Oh my gosh. I mean, we do that in all the other areas of our life. And I don't know why we don't consider that when we're addressing pornography addiction. If we want to get stronger and healthier in the gym, we get a coach, we join a gym with a group of people. You know, same thing applies in business. You find mentors that are wiser, have been down the road, you get coaches. It's just amazing to me that we don't apply those same principles in this area, but it's because it's hard, right? It's hard work and it's not always something that's easy to talk about. So in your work,
it's hard work, but it's way harder to stay sick.
It is.
The women who don't get in the group can take 3 to 5 years to get what a woman gets in 6 months in group.
Wow.
Okay, a man without a group may never heal, which means his wife is going to go through the same cycle again and again. Now that's hard. Sitting in a group of people who love you, that's uncomfortable, Karen. But it's not as hard as having the same nightmare repeat again and again. You don't want your husband to come in and say, honey, we need to talk every 3 years.
So true.
You want a permanent solution where this is not going to happen to me again. Well, if he's not in a group, it's going to happen to you again. It might be a while, but unless he finds out why and how he got this way, he can't unravel that for himself. So when life gets painful again, he's going to go back to Binky. And that's what you want to stop.